Billions of dollars are spent every year on eye supplements, tiny capsules and glossy bottles, promising to protect your sight. And yet, the ancient world had no optometrists. No vitamin aisle. No clinical trials. They had observation. They had tradition. They had seeds. The book of Ezekiel describes a land of wheat, barley, vine, figs, pomegranates, olives, and seeds as the foundation of sustenance for a people meant to flourish. The Ebers Papyrus, written in Egypt nearly 500 years ago, cataloged plant remedies for ailments of the eye with a precision that still startles modern researchers. And traditional Chinese medicine identified specific seeds as nourishing to what practitioners called the liver, opens to the eye's channel, a poetic description of what we now understand as the nutritional pathways connecting diet to visual function. Today we're breaking down 13 seeds. Yes, seeds that have been used across ancient traditions to support healthy vision, and that modern nutritional science is now examining with genuine interest. Some you know, some will surprise you. And pay close attention to. Number 1. It's something most people in their 60s and 70s have sitting in a cabinet right now, and they've never once thought of it as an eye food. And around number 7, I'm going to share a story from the book of 1 Kings, a story set in desert heat, with a man alone and close to collapse that describes, in remarkable physiological detail, what cellular restoration actually looks like. Stay with me for that one. Number 13. Hemp seeds. In the ancient Near East, hemp was one of the oldest cultivated plants known to human civilization. Chinese medical texts dating to roughly 2700 BCE reference cannabis, sativa seeds, what we now call hemp seeds, as a food for supporting bodily vitality and visual clarity, described in terms of nourishing the blood and calming the spirit. The Mishnah, the foundational text of Jewish oral law, lists hemp among agricultural crops subject to tithing, meaning it was considered valuable enough to require a formal portion given to God. Ayurvedic practitioners in India incorporated hemp seeds into formulations for strengthening what they called ojas, the body's fundamental vital essence, with particular emphasis on their nourishing effect on tissues they associated with sight. Modern nutritional analysis helps explain why this cross-cultural reverence might have been earned. Hemp seeds contain a near-perfect ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids approximately 3:1, which researchers consider close to the ideal range for supporting healthy cellular membranes. The retina, the light-sensitive tissue lining the back of your eye, is one of the most omega-3 dense tissues in the entire body. A specific long-chain omega-3 fatty acid makes up a significant portion of the photoreceptor cell membranes in the retina. Studies suggest that adequate dietary omega-3 intake is associated with supporting normal retinal function. Hemp seeds also contain gamma-linolenic acid, or GLA, a relatively rare fatty acid not commonly found in most seed foods. 3 tablespoons of shelled hemp seeds called hemp hearts added to yogurt, oatmeal, or a smoothie delivers approximately 10 grams of protein alongside those fatty acids. No cooking required. No soaking necessary. The seeds have a mild, slightly nutty flavor with a soft texture that blends invisibly into most foods. They do not require heating. In fact, heating hemp seeds above 325 degrees Fahrenheit begins to degrade the delicate fatty acids. Add them after cooking, not during. The ancient world didn't have gas chromatography to measure fatty acid ratios. They had centuries of careful observation, watching which foods sustained the body, supported the senses, and passed the test of generational memory. The research is now beginning to examine the mechanisms behind what they recorded. Number 12. Black sesame seeds. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus describes faith the size of a mustard seed, a deliberate choice of the smallest possible reference point to illustrate something of enormous consequence. In ancient Palestinian culture, tiny seeds carried outsized meaning, and in the traditional medicine of East Asia, Few seeds carried more deliberate significance for vision than black sesame. Traditional Chinese medicine specifically prescribed black sesame to nourish the liver and kidneys, the two organ systems Chinese medicine considers foundational to eye health, in a way that white sesame was not considered to provide. This distinction between black and white sesame, dismissed for centuries by Western observers as superstition, has an unexpected nutritional basis. The black hull of the sesame seed contains markedly higher concentrations of anthocyanins, the same class of dark pigmented antioxidant compounds found in blueberries and black currants, compared to hulled white sesame. Sesame seeds, particularly the black variety, also contain sesamol and sesamin, two lignans, unique to sesame, that have attracted research interest for their antioxidant activity. Studies conducted primarily in Japan, where black sesame has remained a mainstream dietary staple, suggest these compounds may support healthy inflammatory balance in ocular tissues. Black sesame is also notably rich in zinc. 1 tablespoon provides approximately 1 milligram, as well as copper, a mineral required for the proper function of superoxide dismutase, one of the body's primary enzymatic antioxidant defenses. Copper deficiency is associated with optic nerve abnormalities, a connection most eye health discussions omit entirely. In traditional Japanese kitchens, black sesame seeds are lightly dry toasted in a cast iron pan over low heat until they just begin to pop a sound, indicating the oils are activating, then ground into a paste called neri goma, stirred into warm rice porridge with a small amount of raw honey. This preparation softly breaks the outer hull, dramatically improving nutrient absorption compared to eating seeds whole. Whole sesame seeds pass through the digestive system, largely intact. Grind them first in a coffee grinder reserved for spices, or with a mortar and pestle, and you access what the hull protects. Thousands of years of traditional use across 3 distinct medical systems all pointed to the same tiny seed. The biochemistry is now offering some explanation for why. Number 11. Flax seeds. Linen made from flax fiber wrapped the bodies of Egyptian pharaohs. The same plant seeds fed their living subjects. The Ebers Papyrus references flaxseed preparations for multiple conditions, and in ancient Greece, Hippocrates himself wrote about flaxseed's role in supporting digestive and inflammatory conditions, understanding intuitively what we now frame in terms of prostaglandin pathways and lipid mediators. European monastic traditions, particularly Benedictine communities in Germany and Switzerland, incorporated ground flaxseed into daily food preparation as a matter of health discipline. Predating modern nutritional science by 7 centuries, flax seeds contain the highest plant-based concentration of alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, an omega-3 precursor of any commonly available food. They also contain lignans at concentrations up to 800 times higher than other plant foods. One specific lignan, secoisolarici-retinol diglucoside, or SDG, has been studied for its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. For eye health specifically, the relevant pathway runs through ALA's conversion to DHA, the dominant fatty acid in retinal photoreceptor membrane. This conversion is inefficient in most adults, which is why flax seeds are best understood as a supporting dietary source rather than a primary one. But the lignans offer independent benefit studies in animal models suggest they may help protect against light-induced retinal damage. Here is the critical preparation detail that most guides omit. Whole flax seeds pass through the human digestive system almost entirely undigested. The hull is resistant to stomach acid. You must grind them. Fresh pre-ground flaxseed meal begins oxidizing within days of opening, and oxidized omega-3 fats work against the very protective function you're seeking. Purchase whole seeds. Store them in a sealed glass jar in the freezer, and grind 1 to 2 tablespoons fresh each morning in a small coffee grinder. Stir the ground flax into warm, not hot water with a squeeze of lemon, or mix into yogurt immediately after grinding. 1 tablespoon of freshly ground flaxseed delivers approximately 600 milligrams of ALA. The monks who ground flaxseed by hand in stone mills each morning did not know about omega-3 fatty acids. They knew about vitality, longevity, and the practical wisdom of whole, unrefined food. They were, it turns out, getting the preparation exactly right. Number 10. Chia seeds. When Aztec warriors prepared for battle or long-distance travel across the mountains and deserts of Mesoamerica, they carried small pouches of chia seeds. A single tablespoon, according to surviving records, was considered sufficient to sustain a messenger, running distances of up to 20 miles. The Aztec word for chia means strength. Spanish conquistadors who documented Aztec culture in the 16th century wrote with visible bewilderment about the endurance these seeds seemed to support. Chia was so valued in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica that it was offered as tribute to Aztec rulers alongside cacao, precious feathers, and gold. When the Spanish colonizers sought to suppress indigenous culture, they specifically targeted the ceremonial cultivation of chia, understanding that disrupting a people's food system disrupted the people themselves. Modern analysis reveals that chia seeds contain approximately 5 grams of omega-3 ALA per tablespoon, among the highest plant-based concentrations available. For eye health, the relevant pathway, again, leads to retinal membrane integrity and inflammatory regulation in ocular tissues. But chia also offers something less commonly discussed, a significant concentration of quercetin, a flavonoid compound that laboratory studies suggest may help protect retinal cells from oxidative stress. A 2019 study published in Nutrients found quercetin capable of protecting photoreceptor cells from hydrogen peroxide-induced damage in cell culture models. Preliminary research, but mechanistically interesting, chia seeds also absorb up to 12 times their weight in liquid, forming a gel of soluble fiber that slows glucose absorption, relevant because chronically elevated blood sugar is one of the leading causes of preventable vision loss globally. Combine 1 tablespoon of whole chia seeds with half a cup of unsweetened almond milk. Add a small pinch of raw cacao powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Stir well. Then refrigerate overnight. By morning, the seeds will have absorbed the liquid entirely, creating a thick pudding. Eat cool, not reheated. The omega-3 content is best preserved without heat. The texture is soft, slightly gelatinous, and unexpectedly satisfying. The Aztec runners who crossed entire mountain ranges on a pouch of these seeds did not have access to a clinical trial. They had their legs, and they had the evidence of survival. That is its own kind of data. Number 9. Pomegranate seeds. In the Book of Numbers, when Moses sent spies into the land of Canaan to assess what awaited the Israelites, they returned carrying grapes, figs, and pomegranates. These were the sign that the land was fruitful, nourishing, worth entering. Pomegranates are woven through the fabric of ancient biblical symbolism depicted on the hem of the high priest's robe, described as one of the 7 species of the Promised Land, used to decorate the pillars of Solomon's temple. In ancient Egypt, pomegranates were buried with the dead as provisions for the afterlife. One was found preserved in Tutankhamun's tomb. Ayurvedic medicine classified pomegranate as a rasayana, a rejuvenating substance associated specifically with enhancing ojas and supporting sensory clarity, particularly vision. The seeds, specifically the juice surrounding them, contain punicalagins, a class of elagitonin polyphenols found in meaningful concentrations almost nowhere else in the plant kingdom. Punicalagins are metabolized in the gut to produce urolithins, compounds that have attracted significant research interest for their role in mitochondrial health and cellular cleanup processes. For the eye, the most studied compounds in pomegranate are its anthocyanins and ellagic acid, which laboratory and animal studies suggest may help protect retinal ganglion cells, the cells that form the optic nerve, from oxidative damage. Here is the preparation detail. Almost nobody discusses the white pith surrounding pomegranate seeds. Contains a higher concentration of polyphenols than the juice itself, but is rarely consumed because of its intense bitterness. Ancient Persian and Ayurvedic preparations sometimes deliberately included small amounts of the pith, dried and powdered, mixed into preparations. For practical modern use, when eating pomegranate arils, the whole seeds, chew them completely rather than swallowing whole. The seed itself contains punicic acid, a conjugated fatty acid found in almost no other food source. Eat pomegranate arils with a small amount of fat, a few walnuts, a spoon of full-fat yogurt to support absorption of fat-soluble compounds. The priests who wore pomegranate imagery on their garments were not thinking about punicalagins. They were thinking about abundance, protection, and life. The biochemistry, it turns out, honors their instinct. Number 8. Coriander seeds. In Exodus 16, when the Israelites encountered manna in the wilderness, the miraculous food that sustained them for 40 years, the text pauses to offer a description. It was white like coriander seed, and it tasted like wafers made with honey. Of all possible reference points, the biblical writer chose coriander seed as the visual standard. This was a seed so familiar, so universally recognized in the ancient Levant, that it needed no further explanation. Archaeological evidence confirms this familiarity. Coriander seeds were found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. They appear in linear B tablets from Bronze Age Greece, among the earliest written records of Mediterranean agriculture. Roman legions carried coriander in their supply packs, using it as a food preservative during long campaigns, a function that hints at antimicrobial properties, now confirmed in modern research. For eye health specifically, coriander seeds contain quercetin, lutein, and beta-carotene precursors that the body can convert to vitamin A, the nutrient directly involved in the production of rhodopsin, the light-sensitive pigment in the rod cells of the retina that enables vision in low-light conditions. A 2021 study, published in the Journal of Food Science, found that coriander seed extract demonstrated significant free radical scavenging activity in laboratory models, with the researchers noting the concentration of flavonoid glycosides as the likely mechanism. The preparation most people overlook, whole coriander seeds, contain essential oils that begin to volatilize immediately upon grinding, meaning pre-ground coriander from a jar may have lost a significant portion of its most bioactive compounds before you open it. Purchase whole seeds. Toast them briefly in a dry pan over medium heat for approximately 90 seconds until fragrant. Grind just before use. 1 teaspoon of freshly ground, lightly toasted coriander seeds added to warm bone broth, not boiling. Approximately 150 degrees Fahrenheit creates a preparation that allows the flavonoid compounds to infuse into the liquid. The flavor is warm, slightly citrusy, gently earthy, a seed familiar enough to describe a miracle that, in itself, is worth a moment of pause. If this kind of ancient knowledge resonates with you, the idea that wisdom about the body was embedded in traditions thousands of years older than modern medicine, hit like and subscribe, because what's coming in the next 6 entries goes even deeper into seeds that were carried on trade routes, offered to kings, and used in conditions of desperate survival. You won't want to miss it. Number 7. Fennel seeds. Now, fennel. In the ancient Mediterranean, fennel was associated with vision, so specifically that the Greeks named it Marathon, and the plain of Marathon, site of the famous battle, was named for the wild fennel that grew there. But beyond etymology, there is a more specific ancient claim. The Greek physician Dioscorides, writing in the 1st century CE in his monumental De Materia Medica, stated explicitly that fennel seeds and their juice were applied to support conditions of the eye. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder noted that serpents, after shedding their skins, sought out fennel, a detail that ancient observers interpreted as evidence that fennel supported the restoration of clear vision. Implausible as the serpent story is, the underlying association with visual renewal appears across Mediterranean, Ayurvedic, and Chinese medical traditions. 3 systems that arrived at the same conclusion independently. Fennel seeds contain transanethol, the primary bioactive compound that gives fennel its distinctive anise-like aroma, as well as fenchone and estragol. But for eye health, the most relevant compounds are its flavonoid antioxidants, particularly quercetin and chiampherol, alongside rutin. a bioflavonoid that studies suggest may help support the integrity of small blood vessels, including the delicate capillaries of the retinal microvasculature. Rutin has been studied specifically in the context of supporting healthy intraocular pressure maintenance in animal models, a finding that researchers consider worth continued investigation. 1 teaspoon of whole fennel seeds, gently simmered, not boiled. Simmered at approximately 190 degrees Fahrenheit in 2 cups of water for 8 minutes. Then strained. Creates a pale golden tea. Add a thin strip of fresh orange peel during steeping. The peel contains hesperidin, another bioflavonoid that appears to act synergistically with rutin in laboratory studies. Drink warm, not hot. Once daily, ideally in the morning before eating. When absorption of plant compounds is enhanced by an empty stomach, the taste is clean, slightly sweet, gently herbal. 3 ancient civilizations on 3 different continents use the same seed for the same organ. That degree of independent convergence is not coincidence. It is evidence of the kind earned through generations of watching, recording, and passing forward what works. Number 6. Grape seeds. This is the entry's extended narrative peak. Set aside, for a moment, everything you think you know about grapes. In the hill country of ancient Judah, vineyards were not merely agricultural assets. They were symbols of covenant of the relationship between a people and their land, between labor and abundance, between patience and harvest. The vines required years before they bore fruit. Tending them was an act of faith, and when the harvest came, nothing was wasted. But the seeds were almost always discarded. Consider what this means across 10,000 years of viticulture. Ancient winemakers, ancient farmers, ancient households across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, the Caucasus, all of them, for millennia, discarding the one component of the grape that modern researchers have found to be among the most pharmacologically active parts of the entire plant. In the 2nd century BCE, the Jewish physician and botanist Ben Sira wrote, "The Lord created medicines out of the earth, and the sensible will not despise them." Whether or not he was thinking of grape seeds specifically, the principle applies with startling precision to what we now know about what those tiny seeds contain. Grape seed extract is one of the most concentrated natural sources of oligomeric proanthocyanidins, OPCs, in the plant kingdom. These are a class of flavonoid compounds whose antioxidant activity, in some laboratory assays, appears to exceed that of vitamin C and vitamin E by a measurable factor. For the eye specifically, OPCs have attracted research interest for several mechanisms. Their potential role in supporting the structural integrity of collagen in the lens and cornea, their apparent affinity for retinal tissue, and their possible effect on capillary permeability in the small blood vessels serving the retina. A clinical study published in the Journal of Ocular Pharmacology and Therapeutics found that participants who consumed grapeseed extract showed improvement in certain measures of contrast sensitivity compared to placebo results. Researchers considered preliminary, but worth continued investigation. Fresh table grapes contain the seeds, but most commercial varieties have been bred for seedlessness, a modern agricultural choice that inadvertently removed the most bioactive portion of the fruit. Look for seeded grape varieties at farmers markets, Muscat, Concord, or older heirloom varieties. Chew the seeds. They are bitter intensely so because the OPCs are tannins, and tannins bind to salivary proteins. That bitterness is not a flaw. It is the signal of biological activity. Alternatively, purchase whole grapeseed powder, not extract, but whole ground seed, and add a 1/4 teaspoon to plain yogurt or a smoothie. Start with a small amount. The tannin content can be abrasive to the digestive lining in large quantities. The seeds were discarded for 10,000 years. They may have been the most valuable part all along. Number 5. Nigella seeds, black seed. Use this black seed regularly. Reads a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad in the Hadith of Sahih Bukhari. For it is a cure for every disease except death. No plant in the Islamic medical tradition occupies a more elevated position. Nigella sativa black seed. Black cumin. Habata sauda in Arabic is referenced across prophetic medicine, and its use extends into Unani medicine, Ayurveda, and ancient Egyptian practice. Seeds of Nigella sativa were discovered in Tutankhamun's tomb, indicating their value in a civilization that buried only the most prized possessions with its dead. This is not a single tradition's endorsement. It is convergence across civilizations separated by geography, language, and theology, all arriving at the same seed. The primary active compound in black seed is thymoquinone, or TQ, a monoterpene that has attracted a substantial and growing body of laboratory and preclinical research. For eye health specifically, thymoquinone has been studied for its potential neuroprotective effects on retinal ganglion cells, the neurons whose axons form the optic nerve. A 2020 study, published in Experimental Eye Research, found that thymoquinone demonstrated protective effects against oxidative stress-induced damage in human retinal pigment epithelium cell cultures, the cells that form the outermost supportive layer of the retina. The researchers noted that TQ appeared to activate the NRF2 pathway, a cellular defense mechanism that upregulates the body's own antioxidant enzyme production. Nigella seeds are traditionally consumed in a specific preparation that maximizes absorption. 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed black seed oil, never heat extracted, mixed with 1 teaspoon of raw honey. Consumed in the morning on an empty stomach. If using whole seeds, they are lightly dry toasted in a pan for 60 seconds. Then ground fresh and stirred into warm, not hot water. The flavor is complex, sharp, slightly bitter, with notes of pepper, oregano, and something faintly medicinal. It is not a mild flavor. Ancient cultures consumed it deliberately, not casually. Critical preparation note: thymoquinone is sensitive to both heat and light. Store black seed oil in a dark glass bottle. Refrigerated, away from any heat source. Exposure to high heat denatures the compound. Never cook with it. Use it raw. 3 of the world's major religious traditions preserved the same seed. The compound at its center is now one of the more studied phytochemicals in ocular research. That convergence deserves attention. Number 4. Sunflower seeds. The sunflower is native to North America. It was cultivated by indigenous peoples, particularly the Hopi, the Dakota Sioux, and various southeastern tribes for well over 4,000 years before European contact. Seeds were pressed for oil, ground into flour, roasted as travel food, and incorporated into healing preparations. When Spanish explorers encountered the sunflower in the 16th century, they brought it back to Europe, where it spread to Russia, the Middle East, and eventually the Far East, becoming one of the most widely cultivated oilseed crops in human history. The biblical text does not reference sunflowers directly. The plant was unknown to the ancient Near East, but the Psalms speak repeatedly of the sun as a source of sustaining life, and the sunflower's singular, almost deliberate orientation toward the sun, a phenomenon called heliotropism, gave it sacred significance among indigenous peoples who observed it as a representation of devotion, constancy, and solar energy made visible in a plant. Modern nutritional science finds the most compelling eye health compound in sunflower seeds to be vitamin E, specifically in the alpha-tocopherol form, the form most readily utilized by human tissues. 1 ounce of dry roasted sunflower seed kernels provides approximately 7 milligrams of vitamin E, nearly half the recommended daily intake for adults. The retina is one of the highest oxygen-consuming tissues in the human body, and sustained oxygen metabolism generates reactive oxygen species as a byproduct. Vitamin A, as a fat-soluble antioxidant embedded in cell membranes, is one of the primary defenses against lipid peroxidation, the oxidative degradation of the fatty acids that make up retinal cell membranes. The preparation detail most people miss: vitamin E is fat-soluble, meaning it requires dietary fat present at the same meal for optimal absorption. Eating sunflower seeds alone provides the vitamin E, but eating them alongside avocado, olive oil, or full-fat yogurt measurably increases the amount absorbed. Additionally, light roasting at 300 degrees or less preserves vitamin E content. Commercial dry-roasted varieties processed at higher industrial temperatures show measurably reduced tocopherol content compared to raw or lightly home-roasted seeds. Sprinkle 1 tablespoon of raw or lightly toasted seeds over cooked spinach dressed with a drizzle of olive oil. The fat in the oil, the vitamin E in the seeds, and the lutein in the spinach create a nutritional combination where each component enhances the absorption of the others. Ancient dietary traditions arrived at similar pairings through intuition. The biochemistry confirms the logic. Number 3. Pumpkin seeds. The ancient Aztecs called pumpkin seeds pepitas and consumed them not only as food, but in ceremonial preparations associated with healing and vitality. Seeds were ground into pastes and applied both internally and externally. When Spanish missionaries encountered Aztec healing practices in the 16th century, they documented the use of pumpkin seed preparations for a range of conditions, with a mixture of skepticism and evident curiosity. What they observed was a system of plant medicine that had been refined over centuries, empirical, specific, and grounded in generational feedback. In the Old Testament, the prophet Jonah found shelter under a plant that grew and died in a single day. The precise species is debated by scholars, with some identifying it as the bottle gourd or a relative of the cucurbit family, to which pumpkin belongs. The image of sudden, abundant growth of shelter from the elements captures something of the cucurbit family's biological character: fast, generous, productive. Pumpkin seeds are one of the most concentrated plant-based sources of zinc of any commonly eaten food. 1 ounce, approximately a small handful, about 28 grams, provides nearly 20% of the recommended daily intake for zinc. And zinc's role in eye health extends deeper than most people realize. The retina contains higher concentrations of zinc than almost any other tissue in the body. Zinc is a structural component of over 300 enzymes, including alcohol dehydrogenase, in the retinal pigment epithelium, an enzyme directly involved in the metabolism of vitamin A into its active form. Retinal, which is required for the production of rhodopsin in the rod cells. Without adequate zinc, vitamin A cannot complete this conversion efficiently. Even if dietary vitamin A intake is sufficient, the AREDS clinical trial, the age-related eye disease study, conducted by the National Eye Institute, found that a specific combination of antioxidants and zinc reduced the risk of progression to advanced age-related macular degeneration in certain high-risk participants. Zinc was not a footnote in that formulation. It was one of the primary components. Preparation nuance pumpkin seeds contain phytic acid, a compound that binds zinc and reduces absorption. Soaking raw pumpkin seeds in salted water for 8 hours. Then rinsing and lightly roasting at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. Significantly reduces phytic acid content and increases mineral bioavailability. This process, ancient cultures called variations of it, fermentation, preparation, or sprouting, was standard practice in traditional food systems, precisely because empirical observation showed it improved how the body responded to seeds. They didn't know what phytic acid was. They knew that prepared seeds felt different from unprepared ones. The seed, the mineral, the enzyme, to the vitamin, a chain of dependency that begins with what you eat for a snack. Number 2. Sesame seeds white. Now for the story that belongs here. 1 Kings. Chapter 19. The prophet Elijah has just accomplished something extraordinary, confronted 450 prophets on Mount Carmel, called down fire, turned a nation, and then, within hours, he flees into the wilderness, alone, exhausted in a way that goes beyond physical tiredness, into the kind of depletion that follows, not from failure, but from having spent everything. He sits under a broom tree in the Negev desert. The heat in that region in summer exceeds 100 degrees Fahrenheit. He has walked an entire day into the wilderness. He asks to die. I have had enough. Lord, he says, take my life, and then he sleeps. An angel wakes him. Not with words first. With food, get up and eat. The angel says, and there beside him is a cake baked on hot stones, and a jar of water. He eats, he sleeps again. The angel returns a second time. Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. He eats again, and on the strength of that food, the text tells us, he travels 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb. That isn't poetry. That's a description of metabolic restoration. A man in acute physical and psychological collapse, restored to sustained endurance by 2 meals, food and water under desert conditions. Researchers studying survival physiology note that the combination of simple carbohydrate, protein, and fat in a single portable food source is exactly what the body requires to recover from acute stress-induced metabolic depletion. The broom tree provides shade, the water addresses dehydration, and the cake baked on hot coals, portable, dense provides the macronutrient combination for restoration. Sesame seeds, ground and pressed into flat cakes, baked on hot stones, represent one of the oldest portable food preparations in the ancient Near East. A preparation archaeologists have documented across multiple ancient Levantine sites. The sesame cake is, plausibly, what Elijah ate. And what sesame provides is nutritionally precise for that moment: calcium for muscular function after extreme exertion, iron for blood, oxygen carrying capacity, magnesium for neuromuscular recovery, and relevant to this video, zinc and copper in their natural co-occurring ratio, both essential for the antioxidant defenses of the eye. Sesame seeds contain lignans, sesamin, and sesamolin that are converted by gut bacteria into compounds with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activity. A peer-reviewed study published in the journal Nutrients found that sesame seed consumption was associated with increased antioxidant enzyme activity in human subjects over an 8-week period, with results researchers described as consistent enough to merit continued investigation. Make a traditional tahini preparation at home. Toast 2 cups of white sesame seeds in a dry pan over low heat, stirring constantly for 4 to 5 minutes until pale, golden, not brown. Grind in a food processor for 5 to 8 minutes until completely smooth. Add 2 tablespoons of cold-pressed olive oil. Stir. Store in a glass jar. Refrigerated. Consume 1 to 2 tablespoons daily with lemon and a drizzle of raw honey. The fat in olive oil enhances absorption of sesame's fat-soluble compounds. The lemon provides vitamin C, which supports iron absorption from the seeds. Elijah was restored. That is the oldest clinical record we have. Number 1. Pistachios. You've had them at parties. You've reached into a bowl of them without thinking much about it. They are possibly the most underestimated food on this entire list, not because they're obscure, but because their most important property for vision is almost completely absent from mainstream health conversations. Pistachios are referenced across the ancient world with a consistency that suggests something beyond simple culinary preference. In Genesis 43, when Jacob sends his sons to Egypt during the famine, carrying gifts for the Egyptian official he does not yet know is his son Joseph, he specifies the gifts: balm, honey, spices, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds, pistachios, offered as a gift to royalty. This was not a random selection. These were the foods of value, rare enough to be gifts, familiar enough to be recognized. The ancient Persians considered pistachios a food of the ruling class. Queen of Sheba reportedly declared pistachios reserved for royalty. Roman merchants carried them across trade routes from the Fertile Crescent. Traditional Ayurvedic medicine classified pistachio as a nourishing food specifically for what Sanskrit texts called the organ of seeing. And here is what modern nutritional science has now confirmed in a way that justifies every one of those ancient claims. Pistachios contain lutein. This, by itself, is not unique. Many green vegetables contain lutein, but pistachios contain lutein alongside the fat matrix required to absorb it efficiently. Lutein is a carotenoid fat soluble, meaning it requires dietary fat to be absorbed from the intestine. The fat naturally present in pistachios appears to function as an internal bioavailability enhancer, a built-in delivery mechanism. This co-packaging of the nutrient and the absorption cofactor in a single whole food is something that isolated supplement forms of lutein don't automatically replicate. A randomized controlled trial, published in the Journal of Nutrition, with 36 healthy, middle-aged, and older adults divided participants into two groups: 1. Continuing their usual diet, 1. Eating approximately 2 ounces of shelled pistachios daily, for 12 weeks. The researchers measured macular pigment optical density, the thickness of the protective lutein and zeaxanthin layer deep in the retina, over the macula, the part of the eye responsible for sharp central vision reading, recognizing faces, watching a screen. After just 6 weeks, the pistachio group showed a statistically significant increase in macular pigment optical density. The usual diet group showed no significant change. This was a small study. More research is needed. But the mechanism is sound. The result was measured directly inside the eye. And the food producing it is one you can buy at any grocery store. Here is the preparation precision that even pistachio enthusiasts miss. Roasting pistachios at high temperatures oxidizes their delicate, unsaturated fats, the very fats that help carry lutein across the intestinal wall. Raw or lightly dry roasted pistachios, roasted at temperatures under 250 degrees Fahrenheit, preserve this fatty acid profile. Additionally, pistachios are best eaten at the beginning or middle of a meal, rather than alone as a snack, the presence of other foods, particularly any containing fat, extends gastric emptying time and prolongs the contact period between lutein and the lipid carriers needed for absorption. 2 ounces, about 49 to 50 nuts. Not a supplement, not an extract, a whole food, in its natural form, carrying the nutrient and the absorption mechanism together. Jacob chose them as a gift worthy of a king. He did not know about lutein. He knew about pistachios. And across 4,000 years of human observation, something about that tiny, hard-shelled green nut earned its place at the table of the valuable. We've covered 13 seeds today. And here is the one thing I want you to hold on to when this video ends: the thread that runs through every single entry. Processing strips the life from food. Whole sesame seeds, passed through the body intact, deliver a fraction of their minerals compared to ground sesame. Flax seeds, consumed whole, release almost none of their omega-3 content. Pre-ground coriander, sitting in a jar for 6 months, has lost most of the essential oils that contain its active flavonoids. High heat roasting oxidizes the precise fats that carry fat-soluble compounds like lutein and vitamin E across the intestinal wall. This is not a coincidence. It is a principle consistent across all 13 seeds, across all ancient traditions, across all the modern research that followed. The ancient world prepared seeds with what we would now call almost excessive care. They soaked, they ground, they toasted at low heat, they combined with fat, they consumed fresh. They did not do these things because they understood biochemistry. They did these things because generations of observation taught them that prepared seeds were different from unprepared ones, that fresh ground was different from stale ground, that whole and raw and unhurried produced results that convenience did not. Modern food processing optimizes for shelf life, for ease, for uniformity. Ancient food preparation optimized for the body's response. Those are not the same thing. The question worth sitting with, the one I'd like you to carry beyond this video, is this: how much of the most valuable knowledge about nourishing the human body was already encoded in traditional food preparation, and how much of it did we lose when we decided that convenience was the same as wisdom? If this video gave you something worth thinking about, please like it and share it, especially with someone over 60 who's been told that nutrition is complicated. The seeds we covered today are not complicated. They are ancient, available, inexpensive, and waiting. Subscribe for more of this kind of research, where scripture meets science, and where the oldest traditions are examined with modern honesty. And tell me in the comments, which of these 13 seeds are you going to try first? Or which one surprised you most? I read every comment. and your answers genuinely shape what I cover next.